let us get started. I just want to introduce that today is part of our ongoing series, our cross-country learning events for the Regreening Africa program, where we're working in 8 countries, and it is funded by the European Union. It is managed across a wide array of partners who are represented here. And one component of that project is the Shared Decision Hub. And we are managing these series for you. So let's move on. I just want to say, if you have not done so, please put your name and your affiliation or your country in the chat box so we can all see who is here. And again, these cross-country learning events are meant for our colleagues across the countries to get to interact with one another, to hear from each other about successes and lessons, but also to invite guest experts, guest speakers to join us on our priority topics. So today we have an amazing lineup. We are going to start the session hearing from Zanel and Emmanuel, both of ICRAF, and supporting the upcoming and ongoing youth program that is being developed through the project. We will then hear from Mark Kagwe, and Mark Kagwe is the founder and principal of Nendo. And so they focus on African digital strategy and storytelling, and we're going to want to hear more about that. Then we're going to hear from a fellow Regreening colleague, Philip Atim, and Philip is going to be is the senior agricultural officer for CRS in Ghana, and he is going to be joined by Matthew Tiche from Wagambo in Ghana, and Elizabeth Makanda from Jagrito in Ghana. The next speaker is going to be Milton Oboko, who is with One Vision, and I know he's done work with Regreening Africa as well, and talking about how this youth-oriented farming group is working in Kenya. And then lastly, we're going to invite Yui Stephanie Lama, who is coming to us from Cameroon. And Yui focuses her research on natural resource management to influence policies with children and youth and women. And so she's going to talk to us about movement building. So we're very excited about that. And last but not least, because people ask, and the European Union is going to ask, how will we know we've made a difference? So Dr. Mawa Karambiri is going to join us and tell us a little bit about how that can be measured. So with that, I'm really delighted that we've got such an amazing set of speakers, such expertise in the room. We always share a few principles of participation. I don't think I have to review these. I think we're all Zoom experts now, but I will ask our speakers to keep to time. And Edna, can you just turn on your video? Edna and I are going to be co-facilitating. And so we will try to also help you keep on time. And we look forward to getting the questions from the groups. So I've got two more, apologies, polls for you. And let me see. Okay, so what we'd like to know is, what age range do you consider to be youth? What age range or ranges do you consider to be youth? And you can check all that apply. Okay, we're getting a few votes in. Let's see if we can get a few more. All right, we've got it up to 70%, 75%. All right, I am going to end this poll and let's share it. And we see that we consider youth to be in all of these age ranges. So anywhere from children between 0 and 10, teenagers between 10 and 20, and then youth from 20 all the way up to 40. So, but 95% of us cast a vote for 20 to 30 years. All right, fantastic. So now I'd like to launch one more poll while I've got us. And now this one is fun. And remember, this is completely anonymous, as all of them are. So what age are you? All right, we've got 70% of the votes. Fantastic. And all right, we're getting up to 88% of the votes. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to end this poll and let's share it. So this is quite exciting and perhaps important that while we said that the majority of the youth were there in that 20 to 30 age range, a lot of people online, well, 3 are of that age range. And we're also between 30 and 40, 40 and 50, 50 and 60. And since I was launching the poll, I don't get to vote, but I would have hit the top one. So thank you so much. All right, so this is important. I wanted to know sort of what age range of group we're actually talking about youth. And I'm happy to know that we've got some good overlap there. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I am going to invite our first speakers. And so Emmanuel and Zanel, I think you're going to share your screen and you're going to give us the lay of the land. Perfect.
Okay. Hope you all can hear me and see me as well. My name is Emmanuel. I'll be talking about the youth engagement in the Green Africa project together with Zanel. Yeah, so far we need to know who we are dealing with. Like Constant has just introduced the polls on who the youth are. We went ahead and also got to see who the youth are according to international standards and who the United Nations define as the youth. So we went ahead and found out that the youth are defined as the people between 15 to 24 years, while according to the African Union and the African Youth Charter, the youth are considered to be between 15 years and 35 years. Since we're in the African context, it's estimated that the population is almost 1.6 billion by 2030, and this will constitute of about 42% of the total population of the continent. So we went specifically to each country and researched on how many youths are there in each country where the Green Africa project is carrying out its project. So we started with Ethiopia having the highest, which constitutes about 28%, which is almost 32 million out of the 115 million people who are in Ethiopia. So then ahead we went to Ghana, and I believe you can all see these charts where Ethiopia has the highest demographics and Senegal having the least number of youth. So I'll go specifically to each country. We'll start with Kenya, where Kenya has 9.5 million youth, which is approximately 17.17% of the total population. So Kenya also defines its youth of youth constituting of 18 years to 34 years. So that's their age range. As I had mentioned earlier, Ethiopia has 32 million, which is out of the total population of 115 million. So you see, Ethiopia has a high population rate, and I believe when you're carrying out this project, most of the resources will be channeled to Ethiopia, since it has most of the youth, and I believe it also has a very vast land area. Yeah. Moving ahead, we have Ghana. Ghana has a percentage of 57 constituting of the youth, with the age bracket between 15 to 35 years old. And the overall population is 31.01 million people. Moving ahead, we have Mali, which the age ranges is between 15 to 29, which total about to 4.6 million. And it is estimated to have a drastic increase to 12.15 million people in 2020 by 2020, which was last year. So Mali's population of the youth is approximately 60% of the total population. Okay, moving on to Senegal, which we saw has the least number of youth compared to the other countries. It has 21% out of the overall population of 16.74 million, with their age ranges between 15 to 24. Niger, which has a youth population of 28%, out of the overall population of 24.206 million people. Their age ranges is between 15 to 35, and where we found that most of the youth are found in the rural areas. So when we are mapping out the youth are quite remote in the rural areas. Last but not least, we have Rwanda, which constitutes of 26.6% of the total population, which is 12.952 million people. Rwanda defines its youth of people having an age range between 14 to 35 years old. So we also went ahead and researched on the age ranges, which ranges are most of the youth found. So in Ethiopia, we found that from 0 to 14, we have approximately 41.5% of the youth, while 14 to 25, we had 55.2. I believe you can all see the charts. Ghana, similar, we had from 0 to 14, we had 37.83, and 14 to 25, we had 52.82. Going ahead to Mali, we had 47.2 as the age ranges between 0 to 14, while 14 to 25, we had 50.6. Moving ahead to Kenya, most of the youth, the population of the youth from 0 to 14 was 39%, while those in the bracket of 14 to 25, we had 28.71. Rwanda we saw that the age bracket between 14 to 25 was higher compared to 0 to 14, which constituted of 55.65, while the 0 to 14 constituted of 41.16. Niger were almost the same, where 0 to 14 was 49%, and the 14 to 25 was 48.8. Last but not least, we had Senegal, 41.5, which was the 0 to 14 age bracket, while the 14 to 25 was 55.5. So I don't know if we settle down on a specific age range. I think this can be used to identify the people who will be working with. Yes. So I think I'll hand over to Zanel, who will continue from there on how we are able to engage this youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you for those statistics. Zanel?
Thank you so much, Constance and Emmanuel. Thank you, Emmanuel. So I'll just quickly go through our interaction with the different country teams from the project. So we had different interactions really where we were discussing how each country is engaging youth in its project or its activities. So as you can see in front of you, the most common way in which youth are engaged in the Returning Africa project is through data collection, of which the Returning Africa app is used by the youth to collect data on trees that have been planted and so many details about trees and landscape restoration really. And then we are also engaging youth, and this is for all of the countries in tree planting. It's a common way in which youth are engaged. We also have FMNR, which is standing out in some of the countries. And some youth are also lead farmers. It was quite interesting to note that youth are taking the leadership role, and they're also leading, they're also lead farmer trainers, of which it's a very big and prominent role for youth to be able to partake in. And then we also saw some activities in where youth are engaged in value chains and really creating an income out of that. Emmanuel, can you please continue, please, to the next slide? Thank you. So we also discussed the barriers to youth participation in the different countries, because as you know, there's so many barriers that are hindering youth from actively participating in restoration. So in the 7 countries, the most common barriers that came out from our discussions is that there's a lack of cultivable land for youth to really have access to and make decisions on and be able to be productive really. And still on land, we also have youth experiencing land tenure rights and issues around land tenure. Sorry. We also saw a lot of social cultural issues that youth are facing, of which you find that youth are hindered from participating because they are not given or they are not allowed by the cultural norms to take that leadership role in meetings, to partake in meetings, or even share their ideas really on how to go about some of these activities. And we also saw a lack of finance, lack of access to finance, of which this is a big problem because we are trying to empower youth to start their own businesses, and you find that they are interested, but they do not have the capital to start some of these businesses. And there's a lot of rural exodus, and this was common for all countries. Poverty and unemployment is an issue for most African countries. And if we can find a way or a solution to deal with this could be as inland restoration, really, this could be a nice way of getting youth to be interested and getting youth to be fully engaged and meaningfully engaged in restoration. I don't think I'll go through the whole list because of time. Thank you, Emmanuel, please continue. So we also did some research just to see what other countries are facing outside the Returning Africa Project countries, to see what is happening really in Africa, how some issues are being solved by different countries. And fortunately for us, we found a good research by FAO, which was done in 2016, really pointing out the drivers for youth out migration from forest landscapes and giving out solutions really on how this can be tackled. So for example, part of the drivers that we found was that there's a lot of unsustainable natural or cultural heritage. And this is because of land degradation of which youth in most of the Rebuilding Africa countries are participating in trying to fight through tree planting and many other activities, really, and now trying to deal with land degradation. We also saw the low material wealth and health. So there are few economic issues, and this is just a repetition of the barriers that I've also mentioned, that I've as well mentioned in the last slide. This is just to show that this is not only in the Rebuilding Africa project countries, it's common everywhere in Africa, and there's a solution for all of these problems that we are facing. It's just a matter of us opening up, engaging youth to find the solutions from youth by youth for the youth. So I just don't want to read through the list, but I hope you are all following from the screen the interconnected drivers for youth out migration and from forest landscapes. So Emmanuel, please continue. So we came up with a few recommendations, also with the help of some research and the discussions that we had with the different project managers in our different interactions. So for example, a recommendation that we came up with is that there's a need for capacity building and opportunities in restoration for young people. And this we have been able to do through some ideas that we have shared and planning of different activities that are going to be carried out in the different project countries. We came up with very interesting ideas, of which we are hoping to implement before the end of this year. And as well as the project continues in year 5, this will be upscaled and continued, and this will be adopted in other projects we live in after Rebuilding Africa. And so we also came with the recommendation of creating opportunities for more decent and meaningful work in restoration. As you had seen in the last slide, where there's one reason for out migration from forest landscape is the fact that youth are trying to get some security in decent and meaningful work. And there's that perception by young people that decent and meaningful work is not in agriculture or in landscape restoration. So if we were to come up with this decent and meaningful work in restoration, we can be rest assured that young people will be interested and they will speak into this and see it as a career, see it as a business, see it as an opportunity really to invest in from as young as they are. And then we also wish to recommend that in the different countries of our project, we provide business incubation support. As I mentioned, that there's a lot of interest
Zanel, I feel you are muted.
Now, unmute, please. Zanel?
I unmute and it mutes me again.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You're done. You're here.
Was I muted the whole time? Sorry.
No, we would have told you.
Oh,
we lost about 10 seconds. Please continue.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me just round out because I'm on my last slide on the recommendations. So we also came up with recommendations with regards to youth training on technical and business production, of which I'd also have mentioned in the business incubation support, and then also recognizing that different strategies are needed for different youth. As we were discussing in the different meetings that we had with our project teams, we were interested in hearing from them what their young people are, what they are interested in, because we know and we understand that there's different types of youth. You cannot just come up with one strategy for all. So you need to understand them. You need to let them be the ones to suggest the solutions for themselves, not to have a one-stop youth solution. And then finally, we want to involve youth in defining and developing meaningful involving youth in defining and developing meaningful landscape restoration work. So this is just similar to my last point, where young people should be the ones giving out the solutions for themselves. And I think I'll end my presentation here. Thank you very much, Constance.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Emmanuel, and thank you very much to Zanel, you've just done a brilliant job, and it's so nice that you were able to have these conversations leading up to this event. And so we're very, very grateful. So at this moment, we're going to move on, and I really am excited to invite Mark Kagwa, who is going to tell us a bit about Nendo and speak to some great opportunities. Mark, you have the floor.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm just gonna fire up my my presentation here. And I hope you can all see it. You might want to give me a verbal yes just from somebody there.
Yes, it's wonderful. Perfect.
Great. So if I were to ask you, each one of you, what do you think in the last 10 years has been the most significant? Is it the mobile phone, or is it the motorbike? Now, both of these have a lot that they've offered, and particularly for rural youth, perhaps more so male, as I'll come to share, these have been pretty transformative devices for upward mobility. And for me, whether you say it as mobile phone or motorbike and mobile phone, I want to share with you some thoughts and provocations about what I believe are some things you can think about in the agenda of regreening Africa. So taking each one of these, they each have served a very unique and yet still so important of a purpose. For the motorbike, it is moving people and cargo. Cargo can be farm implements, it can be to and from wherever the place that young people are actually interacting with farming, be they suppliers or active participants. And all of them can be enrolled and invited into their journey. So it's playing a very unique role with increasingly more affordable motorbikes and just greater use of them. In fact, there's now, some of you might know this, certain motorbikes where the same engine, the same body, and larger space for carrying cargo. But what I'm really here to start to share a bit more about is my perspective on how the mobile phone as well has also had a large extent of influence and impact. But it's not always just purely good. It's not just purely the be all and end all, meaning it's not that we just have to put mobile phones in people's pockets, be that African youth, and then good things will happen, right? And we know that we have an app, and I'll have a few things to say about that, but I want to center on the phone and pose some questions and thoughts around it and the role of technology. So there's a study that was done by the Mozilla Foundation. You might know Mozilla because they are the organization that provides the web browser called Mozilla Firefox. Now, they did a study and they used Kenya, and they went out to rural towns, mainly rural, with some urban towns. And they found people who had never had a smartphone before. And they divided them into two groups. And so one of these groups actually had what they called a digital intervention. So they didn't just give them a phone, they actually conducted workshops to help them and actually create a solution that would help new smartphone users to take advantage of the phone. And then for the others, they were just given a new smartphone and left to their own devices. What was a surprise to the researchers was that for the majority of people, just getting a smartphone on its own, even if they had somewhat of the intervention, could lead to negative outcomes for them. And I'm somebody who really believes in technology. I am what they call a technology evangelist. I share a lot and create a lot of content and convince a lot of our clients in research and in marketing to use mobile phones and technology. But this research has always stayed with me. It was done in 2017. What it showed is that some people did not know how to manage megabytes. So they had this concept of how much airtime there is. It's this many CDs, it's this many francs, it's this many shillings, right? But how many megabytes does that make? That can be confusing. And so they had limited resources, and now we're wondering, how are my megabytes being spent? And for the group that had no support, they spent more than they wanted, and they didn't know how to control it for the large majority of time. Another surprising thing was the vast majority of people who took on gambling and sports betting because they had a smartphone. In fact, you'll see here, a lot of participants actually recommended betting with a smartphone to others. This completely caught the researchers by surprise. Now, why do I say this? Sometimes we think betting is mainly male, but as you can actually like to see here, yes, that is partly the case, but you can see here that a number of people chose to participate in a deeper way. Again, limited resources, already getting airtime, already doing mobile data, and still finding that the mobile phone, as good as it is, as much potential as it has, was not purely there to deliver good. In fact, in some ways, it accelerated vices and strained finances because people did not know how to use megabytes, or they participated in things such as gambling and sports betting. And let's take another lens, looking at the mobile phone. There is some great research that has been done by an organization called the GSMA, or the GSM Association. This is where all the mobile network operators like Glo and Airtel and MTN and Africell and Safaricom, Vodacom, you name it, they all send in resources and research here. They have a study called Connected Women. And one of the things I want to show you, I would recommend, if you don't see your country here, please check out their full report and see if they have some insights on your country. You can see here in green is male participation. And in this sort of maroon color is female participation. And this is about ownership. So do women own mobile phones to the same extent as men? And so they're looking for a gap there in terms of gender. And then, and this is what I want you to pay close attention to, you can see here that there's a gap in terms of mobile internet use. So women in particular, even though rural women participating in agriculture continue to be, in my opinion, the largest potential influential audience, meaning if somebody taps into them, engages them in the regreening agenda, they can have an outsized impact and influence. But what you'll see here is that even countries like Kenya, where I'm from, while there's a somewhat small gender gap here at 7%, it goes up so high, more than all the other countries listed here, because women are still being restricted, despite owning a mobile phone, from fully participating with the mobile internet for themselves. And I could spend a lot of time on that, but part of this is just to say the gender lens matters when thinking and looking at technology, and thinking of it as a channel to reach people and to engage them in regreening Africa's agenda. Another way we can think of it is my team and I at Nendo have come up with what we call the 5 S's of the internet. The 5 S's of the internet. And this here is our way of explaining, if you give a person in Bamako, Nairobi, Niamey, Lagos, Johannesburg, Accra, wherever the city is, if you give them 100 megabytes or 100 gigabytes, so whichever one you give them, they will do these 5 things in spend all day here, consuming sports content, and then sports betting, where mobile phone networks and mobile money exists. Sports betting is a very big pastime besides consuming sports. Social media, I'll talk a bit about this and how it helps with value chains. Sex adult websites are popular in every major city we've done research and seen so far. And then stories, consuming local content. These are sort of like a rule or a way of seeing Africa's rise of technology and information. And I'm not seeing a place that they're not true. But this is just a way for you to understand better how this technology comes together. I'll spend some quick time just mentioning how COVID affected farmers. A lot of people thought that COVID is going to come and farmers are going to take to technology. They're going to find new ways, but it was not that simple. One, people did increase their usage, particularly farmers. And this is a survey of, I think, it might be 60,000. I know it's tens of thousands of farmers by 60 decibels. But there were still costs. Remember what I said about mobile data? There was challenges for farmers who found that they actually lost almost a quarter of them lost one income source during the pandemic. So they were affected financially. And then some took a very risky approach when trying to cope with the pandemic, meaning some actually sold assets in order to continue to finance their operations or themselves, maybe even setting them back. So part of this is to say that one might think technology has this outsized impact. We might think the mobile phone has only positives to it, but it's been challenging seeing both sides of the coin. So to bring this in to an end, because I'm keeping an eye on my time, here are a couple ways that technology, in my view, is bridging the gap. And here are some ways to use these platforms to reach and engage farmers. There's new platforms like Wowzy. And Wowzy is taking content creators, people with a smartphone, who are farming, who are in the broad value chain or supply chain of farming, and asking them, if you can create content, we can match you to create jobs and livelihood opportunities for agribusiness, call them farm implements, farm inputs, insurance, financing. Those types of companies are now coming to creators, local creators, and saying, you might have 100 followers or 1,000, but you're in the agribusiness space. We'll work with you and we'll connect you to businesses that want to advertise. Places like Gigi are helping and creating some dynamism in the agricultural supply chains. Why? Because they're allowing youth to connect with markets and marketplaces, taking photos of produce, posting it up. And there's many different sites like this, both in Francophone Africa, Anglophone, Lusophone Africa, OLX, Gigi, there's plenty. And so they're just allowing for trade to happen across counties and across spaces. WhatsApp, I don't need to introduce you to it. This is for individual peer-to-peer chat and groups where people can exchange information, ideas, opportunities, and conduct sales between different audiences and people when they're invited in an encrypted chat place. Facebook, I have an example down here of Facebook groups. So you see here a group by an organization called Chalas Farm. They're calling it small scale farming as a business. You have people here selling greenhouses, all sorts of materials. And so when you dive into Facebook, you'll find public and invite-only groups where people are self-organizing and trade of information and access and actual business is being conducted amongst the youth. And you have bloggers too. In fact, you have award-winning bloggers and content creators from the continent in French, English, Arabic, and even Portuguese, creating and documenting learning and local practices and sharing how to get into onion farming, potato farm, how to utilize whatever parcel or area of land. And this here is important because it challenges us to use these different platforms to reach the young people who are there and interacting on those places. And let's not forget SMS. It might not be the first thing on our mind, but it is the catch-all. It reaches everyone with a mobile GPS or GSM SIM card and a signal. So a couple quick things to bring us into to end. The first is, if you're creating any digital intervention, in my view and my experience, you want to try to save any rural youth 3 things. Try to save them their data by consuming fewer megabytes. Try to save them space by trying to make a smaller or what they call a lighter app, and then try to save their battery by optimizing your performance. These things matter, especially if over the next decade, you intend to get millions of people using and giving you more content. And then last but not least, we return to the question, which is more significant, the motorbike or the mobile phone? And I hope you've been thinking about this carefully. The answer is it depends. It's actually the two of them. I wouldn't call one more significant than the other, but I think over the next decade, it will be the mobile phone if we know exactly how and where to use it. Thank you very much. My name is Mark Kaigo. I'll drop my information in the chat, and it's been a pleasure sharing these remarks with you today. Back to you, Constance, Edna, and the team, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you.
Thank you so much. Edna, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I think that's been a very thought-provoking presentation, mobile phone or the motorbike. And I'd like to give an opportunity to the participants. Please tell us the questions you may have for Mark or your comments. Of course, we'll share these presentations as has been requested in the chat. Any questions for Mark? Mark, you seem to have convinced us all. All right. Mark, I definitely think that you've shared with us a lot of reflections, particularly helping us to think of what we need to do while thinking of leveraging on technology to empower youth to get into agribusiness and regreening as well. And should we type the questions or raise our hands? Please feel free to type your questions and we'll be able to direct them to Mark.
Oh, let's go ahead and hear from Mika and Suleiman if we have time, Edna, that'd be great.
Sure. I can hand over to Mika and then Suleiman if you have a question for Mark.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark. I thought that was very thought-provoking, but I thought, could you just say something about Nendo? Because I was sort of waiting to see if you just add something about that at the end. So maybe just a few moments on that.
Sure, thank you for that, and it's a great invitation. So I won't look the opportunity. I'll take it head on. So I run a company called Nendo, based in Nairobi, but working across Africa. So we've worked across 20 plus countries in Africa, and we're starting a project in India. Our first project in India this November, in a couple of weeks. We do research and marketing. And some of the types of research we do are into social media. So looking into what people are saying online and taking all of that and helping the telecoms companies, the banks, and a number of corporates to figure this out and make strategies. The other one is marketing. So you want to reach people with a mobile device. And right now, I'm really excited to say we have a campaign right now for a client in the agri-business and agri-tech space. You probably all know Heifer International. So we're helping them with a youth technology brand they're building called Ayute. We've been running that for them in about 6 countries and running the marketing for that. So we can do focus groups. We just did some in Kano in Nigeria and Lagos. We've just finished up some projects in Zambia. So we're really at your service. If you want to benefit from a number of the resources we've made, we take a lot of time to make free reports, completely free, 40 pages, 20 pages. They're on our website. I'll put it in the chat. And we have a YouTube channel. And again, why we do this is because we want people, no matter where they are in Africa, to take advantage of our best thinking, which is what we publish for free. And then we always write case studies as well, which can help you learn how we did what we did for people. So I hope that helps, Mika. And thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited for the work we do and so glad to be here with you all today.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Over to you, Philip. I see you have a question. Would you like to switch on your microphone and your video and a few seconds to pose your question to Mark?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to say that presentation was very good and enlightening. I really enjoyed it. But my issue is with, I guess you can hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can.
Sure. So my issue concerns energy, power for these mobile phones and then also internet, because majority of the youth, as the previous presentation was made, are in the rural areas, and there are those who also really need some of this connectivity, these linkages. And this is still a challenge. I'm wondering if there are any forms of technology that are in place that we can use, because here where we work, it's really difficult connecting with some of our youth who are in the rural areas, even though some may have mobile phones. I'm wondering if there's something happening that will be addressing some of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Over to you, Mark. Internet, power, we're dealing with a huge population of rural youth. How do we overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest structural challenges I can say that exists today. And it's one that's very, very apparent to me in the sense that, people pay an extra cost sometimes to just charge a smartphone. So the total cost of ownership of a smartphone isn't just when you walk in and get a SIM card, You need to get the education to know how to use your airtime, turn that into megabytes, because some people, of course, unfortunately, end up using more income there than they'd want. Then there's the price of charging. Sometimes you walk to the city center, pay a little bit of money for somebody to charge it for you. So it does come with quite a number of challenges. And the hope is that over the long term, the benefits outweigh the challenges, because these are down to municipal, local government and county or federal and national government issues of provision of power. Now, what I can say that's been exciting for me is to see a number of companies that have tackled this same challenge head on. So one of the ones that I can say has been the most exciting for me to watch has been a company called M-Copa. And look, they're far from perfect, but what I love about their model is they say, we are going where there's no power. And we are going to offer people flexible financing for solar kits where they pay a little bit every day. They actually pay as you go. If you don't have the money to pay today, your power and electricity system will not work. Your solar power system will not work, but you get to pay in very, very small micro payments that allows you to charge your phone, listen to the radio, have a solar light bulb, and then they layer on later a few other solar powered devices like fridges and TVs and more. Now, that's one set of people trying to solve this challenge. It takes, like I said, government and many others. The other area that I'm really excited about has been seeing the innovation that's coming out of the original equipment manufacturers in China, meaning as they've built more devices for Africa and the continent, they've taken close attention that here in Africa, there's still some challenges with these devices. So you find that brands like Techno, who only sell to the continent, are building for some devices bigger batteries, even bigger speakers, because some people love the sound. If you've been in some of the rural areas, some people have an extra speaker that they're just playing the radio from. Some of these phones now have a speaker good enough that it can actually do the job. These are small tweaks and innovations being done. And recently, Google made an announcement that they would be exploring flexible financing for phones. And my hope one day is that the transformation seen in India with a company called Jio, J-I-O, they have just completely transformed the mobile and telecom space in the last 5 to 7 years. I pray that somewhere in Africa, one country, that a similar experience will be had, because it's a combination of great devices, affordable access, and unique software that's very easy on battery. So that was a bit of a long answer, but I hope, Philip, I gave you a good one, and it'll continue to be a challenge going forward. And yeah, we'll see what we can do about it.
Thank you for that, Mark. I would like to look at Salima's question on, tell us, what are some of the low-hanging fruits while engaging with the rural youth? What are they most receptive to? This is from Salima Mamadou.
Wow. I mean, I think if I knew that question, I'd probably be a multi-millionaire. I think one of the challenges really is that it, like any good researcher might tell you in an answer to a question like this, is it depends, right? Are they near the drylands? Are they based near, a water body like a lake or a source of water, etc.? If I look at least with the 5 S's, we've been able to see that sports is a really great gateway towards engaging young people today. Not only because they'll follow national and football in particular, I should say. So the football, if I'm to just pick something with a broad brush, because like we saw, youth means so much to us. Football and sport generally has a pretty big impact in and of itself. You also have this idea of local content. So local film, local or community radio, sometimes vernacular, sometimes in more of the national languages. Now, these aren't exactly low-hanging fruit. These are sort of springboards to then see how you would incorporate that into the work you're doing, right? Be it choosing ambassadors or finding collaborators and partners for your pilot or full project. So for me, part of it is seeking out those themes, if you will. So for me, one of the themes of the net has been sport coming out with an outsized impact and local content continuing to pick up. And I think from those two, the idea is you can build around those or involve those into your content. I would talk about music. I think music has its own, just the continent is going through its own renaissance right now. I didn't get to talk to social media, but I think what I like about TikTok in particular is that TikTok is the most, what I would call, egalitarian of the social media platforms. And what I mean by that is Mark and a young person in a village with, let's say, 6,000 people in a very remote area, but he has a smartphone, I have a smartphone. We can both join TikTok today. And even despite me, I have a high-speed internet connection, my big laptop, my smartphone, that person has the opportunities, not a guarantee, the opportunity to go, I wouldn't say viral, but to have from day one an outsized impact with their content than I do. Because TikTok doesn't discriminate. Places like Twitter, you have to start today, slowly build your following. Facebook, start today, slowly build the same with Instagram. So what I like, TikTok has completely changed our expectations. So I like TikTok, for instance, because I find people of different ages, races, creeds, more than I'd find on any other social network. And we've been writing a lot about TikTok. It is even local, no, I'd say TikTok competitors. So in some countries, it'll be Likey, some of the countries that might be represented here. There's even one from a Chinese company, which is an exact copy and replica. My point of this is there's many, I mean, if we're painting with a broad brush, I could genuinely talk your ear off about low-hanging fruit and opportunities, but I would want to know a bit more about the youth and some of the focus areas and goals, and then we could take it from there. I hope that still gives you somewhat of an answer.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. And for any other questions directed to Mark, he'll continue to engage with them on the chat box. And I'd like to hand over to Constance, who can then welcome the next speaker.
Thank you so much to Mark. You've opened our eyes, and I can see, and I hope you will come back and join us and unpack more of this story. You've given us a great taste of what can be done, and we're very excited to have the opportunity to work with you. And I can just see this idea of take a picture of your product, take a picture of the trees you're planting, get them out there, share that information. So absolutely brilliant. If you can stay just a few more minutes, I know you have another commitment, and just check the chat box and see if there's anything you could add value to. We'd greatly appreciate that. And with that, I'd like to now turn our attention to Philip Atim and his colleagues who have joined us. We're so excited. And Philip, may I give you the floor, and are you going to be sharing your slides, or shall I?
Constance, please share.
All right. Let me just get oriented here. If you want to go ahead and take time to introduce your colleagues, I will pull up your PowerPoint.
Sure, thank you. I think this topic is well situated with the kind of work we do, and I'm happy to introduce my team. My name is Philip Atim. I'm a senior programs officer for agriculture, and I'm coordinating the Regreen Africa project in CRS Ghana. As I mentioned, I'm here with two of my youth that I work with. He's mention your name.
The chief, Matthew.
So that's Matthew and then Elizabeth. They are about just two of the many youth that we work with, and I will be happy to share with our colleagues around the continent and the world what we are doing as far as youth are concerned.
Okay, I believe your slides should be well visible.
Absolutely, thank you very much. So this is just the cover page, the project, but we can just move straight to the next slide.
There's always just a little delay, so bear with me.
Sure. So this slide is just to introduce, give some highlights, especially for those who are joining and may not have much information on the project, but it is under the auspices of the Regreen Africa project. And its objectives are to improve livelihoods, food security, and resilience to climate change in these 8 countries. And the project will restore essential ecosystem services such as soil, fertility, erosion control, and water cycle buffering on 1 million hectares of land in Africa. So these pictures are pictures that have been taken from here, Ghana here, and they are just showing the level of land degradation. Shall we move to the next? All right, so I think one of the first presenters did mention population, especially youth population. It got me very excited because I thought that was the crux of it. And for this slide, it's just to mention a little bit about how we also perceive our youth population in where we work in the Mion district. So for example, we have this projected population. Well, we just had our census. So these figures are very close, but they need to be reviewed. So Ghana is now in 30 million. And then for Mion district alone, where we work, the population is at 100 million. 100,000, sorry. So this map is just the area that we work for the benefit of those who may not know this locality. So I've also tried to do some analysis of the population of the area vis-a-vis the youth. So the next slide, please. Yes. So we are saying that for ages 0 to 14, we have this figure, 15 to 64, and then 64 and above. So you can see that from 0 to 14 years is also very, very, very high, 48,000. Let's move on. Yes, so the youth population analysis for our area. So we have also tried to pull out the various age differences. So as you can see, we have this, and the highest, I'm sure you have seen 15,000 from 20 to 29. And they are the very active part of the youth, composition of the youth. And they are those that also need much attention. And you can see the figure that they really are made up of. Shall we look at the next? Okay, so because the project concerns land degradation, I just wanted to pull out for the area that we operate, these are some of the causes of land degradation. We have fuel wood, we have charcoal on the right, we have farming, new virgin lands cleared for farming. We have bushfire. These are just about 4 of them, but we do have nomadic herdsmen who also go around with their animals. We have mining, we have sand winning. They are numerous, but these are the major 4 that causes land degradation in the area that we work. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now we are zeroing into our engagement with youth. And as the earlier slides indicate, we try to figure out how could we really engage all these masses of youth. And in the, I think one of the presenters presented showed that in Ghana, we have about more than 50% making up youth. That is very huge. So we do have a lot of youth who are really energized. So we thought there could be a better way to use them. So one of the first things we did was to identify schools and then form what we call school environmental clubs. So we go into the communities and then go to the schools and then educate the school children on regreening practices. What we did in other schools were to use some of their agriculture and science periods to take them through regreening practices, to support them to establish nurseries, to support them to do tree planting, to support them in even species identification, value chains of trees. So by doing this, a lot of the school children became very interested, and that is how we got them to form the environmental clubs so that they can be a channel for which we can disseminate some of our information because we realize that even some of them take the information home and disseminate it further to their rural folks, their parents. Okay, so this next slide is another area of youth engagement where we are talking about training the youth to become trainers. So we identify very energized, self-motivating youth, and then we take them through some TOT trainings as a means of empowering them and really equipping them to go into the communities to provide or extend some of these technologies to their parents and other community members. So as you can see in the pictures, there are training sessions. Some are practical, such as grafting. So this woman on the right, they were actually being trained on grafting of shea. And we have so many of these youth in every community that we work, and they continue to be a great vessel for our technology dissemination in the various communities. Part of them, we call them the PASPs, the private agricultural service providers. And as we continue to train them and equip them, we empower them to be on their own so that they can continue to provide extension services to some farmers, especially around climate smart agriculture. Bushfire, as the first slides indicated, is one of the major causes of land degradation, because almost every time you have even the young shrubs that are sprouting, getting bent, and this whole soil is exposed, and we easily have erosions, soil fertility. So what we've done also is to put them together as groups and train them as fire volunteers, and then to give them the necessary logistics that they need so that they can help sensitize communities against bushfires, and also be there to stop any wildfires that have started. And I can say they are doing very well on this. My colleagues who are here, the youth, will be sharing more on it. We have 80 fire volunteers so far established and are trained. And as I mentioned, 65% of them are actually youth, and they are serving in various capacities. One of them just got an award within this year for his immense contribution to land restoration. He was given a citation and some parcels, and it was an encouragement for others. We also have another area that we have engaged youth, and these are football clubs. Almost all the communities that we work in, they have schools and they have school parks where these youth usually go to play football. So we thought they would be a great channel for us. And when we entered, they were very excited about it, and they embraced it. They have established their own nurseries, and they even plant trees. They started planting the trees around their school compounds and also their parks, so that they can have a lot of shade when they are playing their games. And because this became interesting, they now have to move and start doing more. We have even established a football gala where these youth play amongst themselves. And through that, we are able to do a lot of dissemination when it comes to land degradation and how to restore it. So we have this happening in so many places, and they are doing all this good job about restoration. The project also, in fact, just this season, was able to work with a sister project within CRS Ghana, which was on youth. And we decided to work together to support some youth in some 2 or 3 districts to plant trees. So the Regreen Africa project actually provided the trees, and then we did some community sensitization and we planted the trees. This was very widely acknowledged, and there are plans to even continue in other districts this year, next season. So for us, we think that the entry point is the youth. Once you're able to do that in the communities, then it's going to be a massive success, and then others are able to join. We can go to the next one. So what kind of lessons have we learned engaging the youth in our land restoration initiatives? We said youth are very active and fast adopters of technology. So whatever technology you have and you engage the youth, be sure that it's going to be widely adopted. And this is by observation and what we are doing in the community as at now. Youth also combine entertainment and learning and are able to disseminate well. So for example, our football clubs, anytime we have a gala or something, they play, they entertain themselves, but they make time to use the opportunity to disseminate. They also go ahead to create their own woodlots. They raise their own seedlings. So you just think it is a football game. There's a lot of learning going on through them. Most uneducated parents depend and trust in their educated children. So this is where the school environmental clubs really is situated, because whatever information the children send home, they're able to convince their parents that this is the way to go. This is the way to go to be able to maintain our environment. And then youth also work better when they are in groups. So working in groups, for us, we found it very, very interesting, because you're able to reach a lot of them, and then also you're able to get them to do a lot instead of working through individuals. Youth are so active in agriculture. In fact, the figures you saw earlier, almost all of them have some role to play in our agriculture system. Land preparation, sowing, applying fertilizer, harvesting, transportation of food produce. So all these, when you look at those subsectors, you see a lot of youth playing various roles. So we thought youth must really be looked at, because they make up a chunk of the workforce when it comes to agriculture. And what are some of the challenges that we see? We say poor incentives for the youth. And I saw in the previous presentations, they were able to outline some of this, that because there are no incentives, some of the youth may not be very eager to participate. So we have some livelihood interventions in place, because livelihood interventions, lack of them is also one of them. So we are doing something on share value chains, share aggregation and sale. We have beekeeping, and what have you. All those things are used to empower the youth. Besides that, we are also looking at ways of even getting them to increase their agriculture, because that is the surest way to ensure that they'll stay in the communities and will continue the good work they are doing in land restoration. I think this should be the last. This should be the last slide. Yes. So I want my colleagues to come in and share their experiences, because they are the people we work with in the communities, so that we can ask questions if any. So Matthew, we can fill in for any level.
Okay. Thank you very much for you getting the opportunity to be part of this program. I'm very, very happy to say the CRS in my district actually helped, because they work in the district, they went through all the communities, and they engage youth in a lot of activities. Example like nurturing, planting of trees, farmer manage natural resources, regeneration. All these, we went through all this training and we are now adopting it in our communities. That helped to regreen the environment as such. First, we don't know how to actually prevent the situation, but it was happening. But when they came in, they taught us a lot. And we are now using the technology to prevent the environment from being degraded. We also learned how to nurse seedlings, which we were not having. They provide us seeds and they teach us how to actually nurse that tree so that we can transplant them to various fields. So we're happy when they came, we actually accept them and they help us a lot. And this farmer managed natural regeneration. Actually, we're having the forest were being burned. Now we have a portion down where we don't allow people to burn. We can see that new trees, which we're not having them again, are now being germinated. And we are trying to train them so that they can be used for our purposes. Especially some of the trees we will use for additional purpose, we're not more finding them in the environment because the place were being deteriorated. Now we've tried to scale the land down. You can see that most of the trees are now there for we to use for our purposes.
And talk about your role as assemblyman.
Yes. Also, before these people came, I was just a community person. But when we started working with them, we were moving through the communities with the training and other things. I became a community-based assessment. That helped me to even win a election when I contested for an assembly position in the district. It helped me. People got to know me because of their work. I moved with them to help them give education to people about the project, how it is good for them to listen. Some of the bylaws are now being protected by me, and because of me, they are now happy moving with me, coming, finding things from me if they have any difficulties. So because of that, we are now conversant, we are now living peaceful with the environment. And some of the trees, when you come, and we even planted some thick trees. Now, when you go to the place, you like the place. And because of that, we are very grateful for the project. Thank you.
So because of time, let's just hear Elizabeth's voice. But Matthew, like he mentioned, is a honorable assemblyman for one of the electoral areas. And he says through the engagement, he became popular and he was able to win that election. So Elizabeth, please share your voice.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Talk.
I'm very happy. I'm here to share something and hear something from you people. Okay, I'm a lady. I was part of those who are cutting trees for firewood and burning of charcoal. So when these CRS people came to us, teaching us how to do, how the trees are important for us. So now I've also started planting trees, especially share. It helps us a lot. We can pick share and get money from it, get oil from it. So I'm very happy. And also, they taught us how to keep money. And then to keep money.
That's the savings group.
Yeah, the saving group. So we are finding it difficult to get money in our community easy. So this time around, if you need money this time around, we found it easy because when we go to the saving box, we get money from it easily to do whatever we want to do. So because of that, I thank you people very much.
All right, so maybe we'll let people come out with some feedback so that if there's discussion. But she actually belongs to some of the groups, the savings groups, we call it Silk. And then also she's a member of the fire volunteer group in her community. And that is what she was trying to say. So this is what we want to share with our colleagues. If there are questions, then we can discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Elizabeth. Wonderful presentation and very powerful to hear from yourselves how these activities have empowered you, to save, to move away from cutting trees. I believe we all feel really inspired and, particularly your actions towards training of the trainers, ensuring that you're continuing to have a trickle effect on empowering youth and, just giving us those pointers on how best to engage with youth. For example, mixing entertainment with education, I think is quite a learning point for many of us, and even sharing with us the challenges. And yet again, sport came up, football. So definitely this is something we are seeing also from Mark's presentation, and perhaps something that we can use to continue to engage with the youth and leverage for more opportunities to regreen Africa. So I'm going to hand over to Constance, who will then give us our next presenter. But please, let's continue to engage on the chat box. I know there's very many questions which have already been asked. Some of them are to all of us generally. And there are some questions here from Mukura Linda. There are some questions from Anne. And please, let's engage with them. And I'll hand over to Constance and we'll be able to move on. But all the same, I think we are saying great presentation, Philip. And thank you, Matthew and Elizabeth, for joining us. Over to you, Constance.
Thanks so much, Edna, and Philip and Elizabeth and Matthew. Thank you. That was brilliant. And I just hope everyone knows that this is a start of a longer conversation. We've got a lot of speakers today because we just wanted to plant different dimensions. So bear with us as we sort of hurry through the next presentations. But I'm delighted to have Milton Oboko, who is with us. Philip, if you could maybe respond a bit into the chat box, that would be brilliant to some of the questions. And if we have time, we'll come back. And Philip, that was great. Milton Oboko is with One Vision Kenya, and he is going to talk to us about, he is leading a youth organization around regreening as well, among other things. Milton, you have the floor.
Thanks so much, and thanks everyone for inviting me to give my presentation here today. Basically, my talk is going to revolve around how do you build the capacity of youth who are in farming. And I would like to say that I'm one of the youths who have been intensively engaged by Regreening Africa project here in Kenya. Basically, when it's come to engaging communities on farmer-managed natural regeneration, greening school initiative, and many more. So I'm grateful for the Regreening Africa for giving me such a platform. So basically, I'm going to do my presentation because as well, I do run different projects engaging with young people, specifically on advocacy and agribusiness, targeting green enterprises. So that's where my talk is going to be based on today. And before I made this presentation, I engaged 3 youths whom we have been working with just to hear from them, because I also want to gauge my presentation based on what is their experience in all these things. So I would just like to start by asking why the youths, because we remember my colleague was made a presentation based on the technology, the affinity of young people. So you realize that it's true, if you can engage young people, basically, not just in Kenya, but even in Africa, in terms of their population, they're the majority. So if we engage them in agriculture, even the government could get it so much easy by creating more jobs by engaging young people in agriculture based on their numbers. Two, based on their agility, youths, we are hopeful, we are energetic in terms of technology. And we always want to show the world that there's something we can do to change our lives. That is, we are change oriented. That is, then we are the future. I don't know why it is becoming a cliche, but they say we are the change agent. And they also say, a society, youth are the true reflection of a society. And if the youth of that community, of that country feel that they have been sidelined, probably that's a true reflection of what that society is all about. If we engage them good in a very productive way, the future is brilliant. So next slide, please. So what could be the barriers or challenges which could hinder when it comes to engaging young people in agriculture? Because based on the Kenyan scenario, sometimes we stereotype young people so much by saying it's best, they don't just want to work hard, they're lazy, just looking at the trunk sort of as the main problem, but without going, what is the root cause is this? Because we need to ask ourselves, who taught these young people, even through the educational curriculum, how to do agriculture or how to engage in, agribusiness or any other entrepreneurial activities to earn money. So we really need to search our soul and say, what is the root cause? What could be the barrier, the challenges young people face so they can be engaged in agriculture, where at the same time they see it as another source of livelihood where they can get money, create more jobs to the community, and empower even the country as a whole. So before we check that, this is why I just say we could look at it from the tree perspective, where we don't just analyze the problem by looking at the trunk, but we need to go deep into the root cause of the problem, because the impact will be there. How do we involve so many jobless young people and create jobs through agricultural activities? Next slide. So how do we engage young people? This just, a diagram I got from the World Bank website, especially how we want to engage young people meaningfully. And I use it a lot, especially when I do my facilitation targeting young people. So youth will only appreciate a program or when something, we engage them holistically, whereby they see like, okay, we are engaged. How are we going to benefit from all these things? So even if we engage that as a problem, or as a program, or as a government, or as whichever entity, we also feel that we should be engaged as partners. At the same time, how we engage people, we should build their leadership. So if we encompass the three components, we achieve more because they are intertwined in between. Because most of the time, we just feel that, okay, we need to engage them as beneficiaries. So we see youth as a recipient of, the goodies or tokenism sort of, but how do we make sure that how we engage them encompasses all the three components? So we build their leadership, they are partners in the initiative, at the same time, they benefit from it. So it's just my request, even as partners or whoever, when we want to engage young people in a very meaningful way, that is the way to go. I want to give you an example, especially project we are running right now, where we even partnered with the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, whereby we identify young people who are engaged in green enterprises and subjected to intensive training, which is being conducted by Kenya Climate Innovation Center. But it is true, the KCIC, they have so many expertise, but they don't just come to the ground from Nairobi to where we are, working in different counties in Kenya to start their training. First of all, what they do, they engage with the young people we have identified by actually doing what's called the gap analysis, because you realize that most of them, implement project at different stages. So you can not actually, do a training targeting all of them in the same perspective. All of them have different needs. So once you identify what are the needs, then you tailor your training based on the needs you have identified on the ground. So that calls for, once you start engaging young people, whereby you identify the gaps, and you design your training based on the gap you identify, but not from what you're thinking that this is basically what young people need. Because sometimes if you do your training based on what you think best is good for them, however much you are learning, sometimes you will just be talking on yourself. But you design with them, then they own the process. It makes work much easier. Next slide, please. So in Kenya, the scenario, if you check, the population vis-a-vis the job creation, you realize that by 2017, young people in Kenya were, 20.1% of the Kenyan population. And based on the scenario, once the population of young people is more than 20% of the overall population, basically that's a youth bulge. So it depends on whether, the policymakers sees young people as an opportunity or a threat. If it is an opportunity, how do you tap into that opportunity? So I just stopped here when I was saying the population versus the job creation, where I say, it's how we view the youth, whether in terms of their population, how we utilize them based on their numbers. So it's about, are they an opportunity or a threat? So I will request we just go to the next slide.
Zanel, next slide, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So what I'm talking about now, if we really need to engage youths in agriculture or farming, what do we really need to do? First, youth, their capacity needs to be built through trainings and extension services, because you realize that quite a number will start farming with the very little knowledge on the type of soil, the kind of crops they need to grow there, even where to get extension services, they still don't know, and even where to get the farm inputs, and even how to use them. So when we dwell so much on capacity building young people who are already in agriculture, they could also be a role model to others who still find agriculture not to be enticing or still have a perspective that agriculture is meant for the old. Number two, if we can do exchange learning visits, like peer-to-peer learning, that's also awesome thing, whereby we can identify who are young people doing agriculture and where are they, and can we actually identify other young people doing the same thing. So we conduct exchange learning visits where they could share their experiences, their challenges and opportunities. That is also a motivation, because somebody could be telling you how they started, the challenges they have experienced, and could also share notes. So, and they can form a network from there. Then number three is issue to do with the land ownership. Most of the challenge they have, actually, they don't own this land. You realize that the land belongs to their parents, who also have interest on how the same land needs to be utilized. So that's also a challenge. So some, you realize that it's specifically the ones we do engage, they lease their lands, which is not sustainable. So issues to do with the land is also a challenge when it comes to involving youth in agriculture. Number four is about community perception, especially to young people who have gone to school, higher education, especially when you are a graduate in Kenya. And sometimes getting a job is never easy. And you now say, I want to venture into agriculture. People will be perceiving you as a failure, simply because we are oriented to pursue white collar jobs. And when you say, I want just to be here and now dwell into agriculture, however much you are earning, sometimes if you don't have parents who can support you, they will still feel that you don't have a job. So changing the narrative also needs to be done. Number five is access to finance. How do we enhance access to finance through the startups or through the grants. Because farming is, you take risks to do farming because we depend on rain to do all these things in terms of storage, in terms of pests and diseases. So sometimes when you get loan at a higher interest and the harvest is not that good, young people feel demoralized, and even you don't have the energy to carry on. Number 6, and finally, we need mentorship and coaching. We need to connect youths who are already in agriculture with experts or people who have done this thing for quite a long time. Because when you do something, it is your first time, you get a lot of challenges. That is when you need someone who can mentor you, who can show you the way. So those are the 6 things I wanted just to share with you what we really need to do. Then why is youth empowerment important when it's come to even to agriculture? I will just pick this quote where someone says, youth empowerment is important to me because when empowering the youth and future of the world, we give them the power of change and the power to break cycles that have caused problems in the past. If we can empower these youth, I strongly believe, through agriculture. And the world today, one of the challenges the world is facing is how to feed the population. How do we engage these people, or do we engage young people specifically to solve the problem, the global problem of food insecurity? And that could be the difference we really want to see. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. So moving on, we really are excited to have another external guest, and that is Uwe Stephanie Lama from Cameroon. And Uwe, we look forward to hearing your message for us around movement building and what's important. Uwe, you have the floor. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think I'll be sharing the slide from my end. Thank you, Constance, Edna, and Zanel. Okay. Oh.
Very good. If we can get into screen share.
Yes.
And into full presentation mode. Yes.
Okay. Let me know.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Perfect. How did we get you muted? Hold on.
All right. Can you hear me?
Start again. Yes.
So I will be talking this afternoon rather, on youth movement building, and I'm talking all the way from Limbe, Cameroon. My name is Ewi Stephanie Lama. You can call me Ewi or you call me Lama. I love the 2 names more. So okay, so I'm an environmental and climate justice advocate, and I have 8 years work with community development, landscape restoration, gender empowerment. And I started off as a volunteer in 2013, and I'm an aspiring PhD student in natural resource and environmental management this year. So I actually offer my services in quite a few organizations, and today I'm representing Forest Resources and People and the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network. Aside that, all the organizations I'm part of are youth focused organizations. The Pan-African Center for Climate Policy is focused on achieving for Africa a safe environment, and DAI is focused on building youth leadership for creation care, and the International Model Diplomat is focused on the SDGs, it's modeling the SDGs according to the United Nations. We have the Cowrie Network, which is focused on empowering youth for Africa impact. And we have the Youth Against Slavery movement that brings together youth all across the globe to be able to raise up their voices where it comes in their different domains, including climate change, including environment, disability, gender, whatever aspect you are focused on. Vibrant aspect for climate. If you find interest in climate change, you could quickly join the Climate Reality Project. It has over 30,000 youths across the globe. So my work as an environmental and climate justice advocate in these different organizations have included climate change education in schools, where we've established climate change clubs with children in different schools. And these clubs have hosted last year. We started these clubs last year, and we had 81 children in our club. This year, we have 105 children in our club. And we decided to bring up the Miss Environment contest, where we're trying to engage young girls in taking part in environmental protection through tree planting. And this year, we are ongoing with the Green Football program, where we are bringing together youth groups across Limbe, where I live, to play football for landscape restoration. So they are going to be planting trees alongside playing their football matches. We also have tree planting exercises with schools, beach cleaning, radio programs, micro-enterprise programs, development trainings. We conduct research, and we offer mentorship programs for young people across different domains when it comes to environmental protection, climate change, and gender. So working in these different youth movements, some of the outputs we've noticed are landscape restorations. We've been able to restore some landscapes with over 5,000 trees in Limbe. We've constructed nurseries together with these young people. We've created an eco-friendly climate in Limbe, and we've raised climate change awareness amongst children. We have a cleaner community, and we've been running, helping these young people to run, establish their businesses in climate smart milieus. So you notice one of the benefits of actually being in youth-led or youth networks, such as the ones I've pointed out, is that it increases your competencies, and it also helps you have high self-esteem, getting to relate with youth from different backgrounds across the globe. It's of the webinars and Zooms, Meet programs, Google Meet, that came as a result of the COVID-19 issue. It has led to bringing the world to really a global village where there is easy interaction across different regions, different platforms, and different languages. We've also, you realize that the benefits of youth networks is that it enables you as an individual to develop yourself. And it also enables you to build your status. I can't recall how many platforms or opportunities I've had from these diverse networks to be able to tell my story on gender and rural women's inclusion, in advocacy for rural women's inclusion in decision-making platforms, and youth engagement in climate change projects, where I couldn't have helped with my story. So it also increases your self-discipline and helps you to be able to manage time. And also, it, like I said, it gives you exposure. Being in youth networks, it gives you exposure, especially if you go by the vision and missions of the various networks. Sometimes it might be a little challenging to cut across all the platforms and all the movements and all the networks, but disciplining yourself and making schedules, putting deadlines, and trying to meet up with them helps you to be able to grasp all of these opportunities. You get to know different people, you get to meet quite different knowledge sharing from different platforms and different organizations. And it also gives you the ability to create fulfilling change and impact. In my space of landscape restoration, climate change, and advocacy, I've been able to create a lot of impact across these diverse networks because I've taken advantage of these opportunities. So the main thing is encouraging youths to engage themselves in areas where their capacities or their competencies showcase more and showcase at a higher increase. It's not about going across everything that calls up, but it's focusing your attention to what exactly showcases what you're looking forward to and what you want to impact the world with. So those are quite some of the benefits. And this is where I'll wrap up with the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ewi. I think we've all enjoyed your presentation, and just from showing us the innovative ways of engaging with youth, I really like the idea of the Green Beauty Contest, green football, and just giving us an insight as to how youth networks, being involved in youth networks, can really also build some personal attributes and skills that are useful, such as better time management, more exposure, and we're really grateful for that presentation. And we'll continue to get questions from the chat box and engage with all our speakers. So with that same breath, I want to invite Mawa Karambiri, who is going to take us through a presentation on measuring youth engagement. Welcome, Mawa.
Thank you very much, Edna. I think we are running a little bit behind schedule, so I will go very quickly. I just wanted to share a few thoughts on measuring youth engagement in landscape restoration. My slides are not moving. Sorry, I have two screens. Yeah. Why is it important actually to measure youth engagement? First, it's important to measure youth engagement for one to know exactly the impact of the actions that are being taken and how the process of those actions are impacting, and how actually or what achievements are ongoing, or what transformation, what changes are ongoing in the ground. So we measure to track changes, and those changes are going to be observed before the intervention, after the intervention, and quite sometimes after the whole process is completed. What to measure? To be able to talk about measuring something, you need to be intentional of bringing youth on board first. And then you can think of measuring what is being done. For example, it could be focusing on landscape restoration. You can consider the presence, the participation of the youth into the project, and how the process or how the engagement of youth is being done. In which case you will focus on the strategies used to mobilize youth. For example, the venues of the meeting, the timings, and the type of material used to engage with youth in landscape restoration. Third, measuring the outcomes of the efforts. For example, you can try to see what are the positive changes, or what are the positive developments that have come as a result of the. Now, measuring what to measure. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And the next one is how to measure youth engagement. I have listed a set of 3 indicators or 3 levels to consider. The first level is to assess the expectations of youth, or the youth themselves, from their engagement into a given activities. Here we're talking about land restoration. What are the youth expecting from their engagement into the process? and in which case you will need to engage with the youth and collect data. Those data could be qualitative or quantitative. And you also need to develop, depending on your case, you develop important criteria that are going to allow you to see the quantity and also the quality of those expectations of the youth. The second level is about assessing the organization, the program perspective on the youth engagement. In that regard, you will need to collect data on the nature of activities that have been used to engage youth. You will also need to collect data on the resources that have been dedicated for the engagement, and also develop a key criteria that are going to help you understand what are the outcomes that resulted from the engagement. So those data are to be collected from the organization or from the program staff level, so that you could cross-check if information coming from various sources. And the third level that I wanted to mention here is about the enabling environment. The youth themselves, the youth as from the perspective of the organization or the project staff, and then the youth in their own environments. This is very important because you need to see how supportive or what are the barriers that the environments are present for the youth engagements. So here you will collect data to see the level of support and commitment to the youth engagement. And also you will need to go through the policies, for example, that are in place to enable or that can constitute barriers to the youth engagement. So these data could be collected from parents, from community members, or from various social structures that are going to help you assess the youth engagement in their own context and environment. So I wanted to ask, what about you? Do you measure youth engagement in your projects? Or if yes, how do you measure that engagement? So that's it. 2 questions I wanted to leave you with. Thank you very much. And also there are many toolkits that explain much more deeper and that help you to go step by step to assess youth engagement. So thank you, Constance.
Thank you so much, Mawa. And so I really appreciate that, because Regreening Africa really is inviting us to both have the evidence and the experience to scale up regreening and restoration. And I think what we've heard today is that we have many different entry points. It is an amazing space. There are a number of great lessons. I mean, you can see how Milton has taken his work with regreening and moved on to work with many others. The important work that Philip has undertaken through CRS in Ghana, and the delight to have the youth colleagues, Matthew and Elizabeth, that have joined us from EWI. You know, you can get at different scales in your networks and you can have an influence. And I think what we have seen, as Edna's already reinforced, is that we have a huge opportunity to mix entertainment, to mix economics, you know, social, cultural, and environmental. It's just been a really important moment. And I'd like it if we could also just say a big thank you to Mawa, because this is the question, is how are we going to know that we're making a difference? I think that that's the kind of data that's going to have to go with us. Underground has raised the spillover. How are we influencing the community? So this is the beginning of a conversation. And I would like us to all come on to our videos at this moment. I know we're just about to the finish point, but please stay with us. I want to thank Zanel and Emmanuel and Edna and Mawa for planning this event, and to our interpreters and all of our speakers. And before we close, I would love it if Mika might make a couple of comments, because I think that there have been a lot of insights gained that may be useful going forward, huh?
Thanks so much, Constance. And I'll keep it brief because we've heard a lot of ideas. I think it really does highlight the need to reflect on what we're doing with youth engagement, to always be pushing forward. So we know a lot of the barriers, as Anne pointed out. So let's really try new ways of engaging youth and making sure that the youth are in the driving seat of that. And then let's capture as we go, so that we're learning from our past experiences and we're putting the ideas forward. So I really appreciated the ideas looking forward that we can integrate into our work, because it is critical. I think the figures at the beginning show that this is something we have to consider. It has to be central part of the work that we do. So let's keep innovating and keep learning and keeping the conversations from today going forward.
Because this has been an amazing experience today. And I'm going to look to Zanel, and I'm going to, hi Anne, fantastic. I'm going to look to Edward. I am going to look to Zanel and Emmanuel, and I think they are going to help us capture the real essence of what's come out. We have an events page, thanks to our dear colleague, Marianne. So we will post not only the presentations, the recording, but also there will probably be a blog, and we will post the resources that came into this, because really it's been a wealth, and I hope that we can all take something away that's of great use. So thank you all. Thank you to our speakers. Hello, Gloria. Stay healthy.
Merci.
And
au revoir.
Thank you very much.
Et joyeux anniversaire, Mawa.
Hello, Jalal. Hello, Jalal.